Good morning, everyone. This is Jeffe Kennedy, author of fantasy romance and romantic fantasy. I'm here with my first cup of coffee. Mm. It's a lovely morning here in Santa Fe. In fact, I thought about trying recording this outside on the east side of the house where it's nice and warm this time of year. With video, it will be interesting how I can pull that off, but I'm not giving up sitting outside so that you guys can have video. See, I do have my boundaries. But I looked to see it. It was real feel of 14. So I decided, even with the sun, that probably was going to compensate for that. So today is Friday. Yay! Friday, February 26th, last work day of the week, of the month, um, of 2021. Um, I don't even know how much that, so many people work weekends, and with the pandemic, we're all like on screwy schedules. But I think Friday always retains a particular charm regardless of our schedules, don't you think? I think so. We need we need magic days. So before I go any further, I will discuss the earrings that I wore on Tuesday, I guess it was, and then forgot to say anything about. So as you can see, they're very sparkly, or if you are in video, you can see that they're very sparkly. So you can see them in my hair, which is less full of tenebrous depths. Can't say it though. Tenebrous depths since I got it trimmed and shaped. It's so much better. It was really starting to feel like a big, heavy mass to me. So these earrings are just cheap little studs. Let's see if I could get this to focus on there. Not studs, just cheap little small danglies with some yellow crystal beads and some rhinestones in them. They're in a pretty swirly shape, and they're unusual because they are shades of yellow, which I don't feel like there are that many earrings in those colors. So I wear them on the rare occasions that I wear yellow. And I like them because, for all of those reasons, but also because my stepdaughter gave them to me. She picked them out and gave them to me for, I don't remember, Christmas or a birthday. And it was just a really thoughtful gift. Like some years it's the perforce gift, and other years it's the one that she said, "Oh, I saw these at one of those booths in the mall." And she said, "And they weren't expensive, but I thought of you." And I was like, "Yay, they were me." And they came with a matching necklace that was really pretty too, with similar swoops and the yellow and crystal beads. And that fucker fell apart. It just, I think I only wore it a few times. And I even tried to repair it and put it back together again. And it was just like, no. Um, it was just, I don't know. I envisioned it being like one of those mall stands. I don't know if you have them where you are. Uh, I know the mall that she goes to. She lives in Denver, and so she goes to the Park Meadows Mall, which is a fairly new mall, big one. And in the center, like they have those big, big, wide atriums with the shops on either side, sort of the embedded shops. But then down the center are all of these stalls with some are more permanent than others. I don't even know what the um, rental situation is there. I mean, like, do those booth proprietors rent the stalls from the mall? Like, is there any vetting system? I don't know. Um, Sometimes it seems a little on the questionable side because some of the people who run the booths are very aggressive and 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 often Russian, which or at least Eastern European. I'm not great with accents, but they will have that Eastern European accent, and they will come out, like 20 feet from the stall even, and press things on you. And I've had them actually like try to herd me back to the stall. I think they're not actually allowed to touch you. Because I think they would if they were allowed to, but they will like get in your way and be obnoxious. And I've bought things at some of those stalls. They have different stuff, and it's I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if it's made by indentured servants. So you know what I'm talking about, right? It's like you always want to say, so how did you come by these goods, and is the mall policing this? I should probably put in a caveat that I am casting no aspersions on the Park Meadows Mall. I have absolutely no idea. I'm sure it's all perfectly legit, but one wonders sometimes. So, um, Dark Wizard came out yesterday. Hooray! And it was a good release day. I think I've mentioned before, I often don't like release days, but yesterday was a good release day. It was, people came out and said really nice things about the book. And so that was amazing and wonderful. Uh, I suspect I will get like either the love hate reaction on this book, but so far all the stuff I've been seeing is strong love, and that again very strong reactions. So that's great. It's really great to see. There's a review on A Little Bit Tart, A Little Bit Sweet that did a very thorough discussion of how some of the elements might be difficult for some people. And so I'll probably add that somewhere, because it is good. I don't really like to put trigger warnings on stuff, partly because I think they've been abused. Maybe abused is the wrong word. They've been used for purposes other than to warn people about content in a sincere way. Uh, like a lot of the erotic stuff has started doing that, saying warning includes daddy play and may leave you with your eyeballs bulging out, this kind of thing where it's like a fake warning that's meant to titillate. And I also think that the term trigger warning has come to be uh, really abused, because there's a big difference between being bothered by something, being upset by something, being offended by something, and actually being triggered, having an actual PTSD trigger. Um, so it's all become so fraught that I don't really do it, but I do appreciate that there are people who are not me who can step back and say, uh, some of the power dynamics might be really uncomfortable for people, because in many ways this is not a nice society. And a dark wizard, excuse me, that frothy latte, and drinking down that air. Um, and I wanted that to be the case. I mean, that wasn't an accident. I wanted to explore a very fraught society. And those of you who have read Sorceress Moons will recognize certain themes that are similar. This is my sort of next exploration, next level of that. So, so yeah, I really appreciate the wonderful stuff people are saying. And so far, like most of the people, that I'm hearing feedback from are all saying the same thing, that the world is so engrossing and that they come away with it haunted by the characters in the world. And that's just the best compliment ever. So I'm happy, happy, happy. Um, and interestingly to me, there were a whole lot of UK sales yesterday. I think it's the wizard thing. David was like, "Why are so many people in the UK buying this book all of a sudden?" I'm like, "I don't know." That's answer to Harry Potter. I am not a turf. I'm, for the record, I am not a turf. Um, yeah, we'll just. I guess I should probably, because I know my mother will later contact me and say, "What's a turf? What are you talking about?" Maybe you know, Mom. But a TERF stands for Trans Eliminating Radical Feminist, or maybe it's trans exclusionary. They probably haven't gone to the step of eliminating, although some of them might want to. I think it's trans exclusionary radical feminist. And J.K. Rowling has come out as being very strongly um, anti trans, which is basically the reason why it's particular to radical feminists is it's this view of feminism that women who were um identified at birth as male and later identify as female don't count as real women. I mean, I think that's what it boils down to. And you could go read people who are much more informed about it than I am, who say very smart things about it. But that's basically what it comes down to, that they feel like it is somehow um, eroding the power of the feminist movement to allow women who are trans into the movement. Like, and they also come up with all this really dorky stuff, like that there are pacts between um, pubescent or adolescent kids where they decide together to become, to transition, like it's a whim, like it's a social pressure thing, and they talk about it that way, and the the people that I do know who are trans or who are trans allies, they're like, do they think that we don't find other people like us? That we don't find people who are in a similar predicament to be our friends and support each other through something that's really incredibly difficult to deal with. It's just a really weird slant on things. So anyway, many people are upset about J.K. Rowling, and it has really tainted their experience with Harry Potter, which is really too bad because it was so beloved. And I've heard a lot of Gen X people, I mean, Gen X, I know that it is our brand to be sarcastic. Uh, that's like from the beginning, we were the snide ones, and I've seen the joke going around where it's like whenever a millennial complains about losing their faith in J.K. Rowling and the magic of Harry Potter, that the Gen Xer will say, "Oh, let me tell you about Orson Scott Card," and and while it's parallel, because many of us loved Orson Scott Card. I mean, Ender's Game was a watershed for many of us. I read all of Scott Card's books, and finding out that he was a raging homophobic was devastating, and not being able to read him anymore was, yeah, it's just infuriating. But I don't think for us that this matches anything like the people who grew up reading Harry Potter and feeling like that brought magic to their childhoods and opened up the world of fantasy to them, to lose uh, faith in J.K. Rowling. So I do think that Gen Xers should knock that off, because it was obnoxious about Orson Scott Card, but it's nothing like the disillusionment of well, of what they've gone through. So anyway, I don't even remember how I got onto this, except that I was saying that I'm not a TERF, which I'm not. uh Moving on. Although I do consider myself to be a feminist, I don't know if I mean, obviously I'm a feminist. I don't know what I'd have to do to be radical feminist. I Does anybody know? So, since we're talking about definitions, I had been talking a bit yesterday about dark fantasy, and Laura Darnell, hi Laura, said she did some Googling, and I did some similar Googling, and she said that she decided it wasn't dark fantasy, according to Google's definition. And I noticed that Google pulled the definition from this article, and I don't remember who it was, someone who wrote it and decided like what the elements of dark fantasy were. Uh, and I know that that's where Google got their definition, because I read the Google definition and then I went to like the first article that looked interesting, and that exact paragraph was in the article, which is, this is how Google does, right? But it is a little bit deceptive, because there's nothing wrong with that article, but it was one person's opinion. Um, and for Google to pull it out and sort of put it as, here's the definition, yeah, it's a short answer, but it's also one source, one opinion. And I notice this a lot with genre, that um, I mean, writers are always looking for think pieces, essentially, right? We're always looking for interesting things to say that readers will also be interested in, um, to expand our platforms and, do the social media thing, and, more power to them. That's, God bless all of us, right? I was going to go with bless your heart, and I realized that that's too barbed. So I don't know why I ended up with God bless all of us, because universe bless all of us. Whatever. More power to everyone. I don't think that people shouldn't do that, but I do think that it causes problems because those articles can be taken as definitive, whereas they're very subjective, and they may have nothing at all to do. This is the important part, is that for a writer to say, this is what I think are the elements of dark fantasy from looking at these different books and so forth, it may have absolutely nothing to do with what the traditional publishers think, or what the agents think, or what the bookstores think, or what the book buyers for the bookstores think. And those are, I mean, a lot of the self-publishers will, you know, toss their hair and say, I don't care what they think, because we're the ones defining the industry, which is arguably true. But it's important to recall that the driver of genre has long been the marketers and the booksellers, book buyers, booksellers, brick and mortar, mainly because, and libraries. Very important to remember libraries too, because they want to know, where do I put this book on the bookshelf? If I have a client, a patron who wants a particular kind of book, what do we call it? And so then that kind of filters. It's this end market driven, and I'm not a business person, so someone can correct me if I'm using the wrong terms, but it's all of that is driven by the end, by the sales. And even self-publishers have to deal with things like picking their Amazon categories. And Amazon has a ton more categories than the BISAC codes, and I do not remember what BISAC stands for, BISAC, but that's been used for a very, very long time to code books for bookstores and libraries. And, I think it's codified by Library of Congress. So this is driven by the end result, and then it comes back through to the publishers, to the marketers of the publishers, and to the editors of the publishers, who have to be able to say, this is what kind of book this is, so that the funnel knows where it's going to go, and so that they can do their profit and loss statements on, how we think this book will sell. We want to compare it to something else. It goes into this particular category. So the agents, we go another step back. The agents want to be able to tell the editors what it is, so that they can sell it to them, and they can say, this is what you would put on your profit and loss statement. So then the writers who are talking to their agents are being told, they have to figure out what to tell their agents. And they have to say, well, I think it's this. And their agent goes, no, 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 I think it's this. Or, oh, no, 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 I think you should try to make it more this. All of that is a very long way of saying that you can write an article about what you think are the elements of dark fantasy, but that may have absolutely nothing to do with the way readers or booksellers are actually talking about it. And one comment I made, because Laura said she thought mine was not dark fantasy, which I'm not arguing, because I don't think that I write dark, but like some of the, like the article that I saw, that elements were supposed to be like that evil sometimes wins, that there aren't necessarily heroes, that there are horror elements. And I don't think that that's necessarily true for a whole lot of what's being called dark fantasy these days. I think it also has to do with who's talking about it, because romance readers see something as dark when it has, when it's not really light and happy, whereas for a horror reader, or a suspense reader, or true crime reader, the what for them is dark is on a very different scale. So it's really going to depend. And I think that because I have so many people on the romance side reading my books, I think mine do end up seeming dark because they often take on um, intense issues, often of, I mean, my original tagline when I first started writing fiction was love, power, and fairy tale endings. And I'm always interested in power dynamics. And so a lot of times that has to do with things that, about what is true compliance, what is true consent, I guess I should say. There are a lot of things that, we talk about, you have to have consent, but then there's a lot of gray areas that influence consent. And it's like, well, pressure doesn't have to be violent pressure. There can be all sorts of pressure, which we, wrestle with things like sexual harassment and so forth, that people can appear to be willing, but it's because they're feeling other sorts of pressures. So anyway, I think that's where some of the dark stuff comes in, is wrestling with themes like that, whereas light fantasy doesn't engage in more serious issues like that. That would be my guess. But don't quote me to Google on that. So, time flies, right? So I'm going to sign off. I hope you all have a wonderful weekend. I will talk to you on Monday. Go out and do some fun things. And thank you all for the wonderful support on Dark Wizard. You all take care. Bye bye. Oh, wait, I forgot. First Cup of Coffee is part of the Frolic Media Podcast Network, and you will find more podcasts you love at frolic.media/podcasts. And now I will talk to you later. Take care. Bye bye.